You're listening to Reforming the Ozarks, a podcast serving the local church in Southwest Missouri with biblical teaching and Reformed theology. To learn more about our churches, please visit ctkjoplin.com and gospelsgf.org.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Reforming the Ozarks. We are joined once again by our very special guest. We're honored to have him, Pastor Aaron Rains, associate pastor down at Christ Church in Bentonville, the lower half, some might say the not as great half or part of the Ozarks. I don't know if we'll continue. I've already just started it though, so I don't know if we'll continue that fight today. But anyway, we are very thankful though to have Aaron here on the show. So Aaron, thanks for joining us today.
Yep, thanks for having me back. I'm here for more abuse, and you'll notice that I am wearing a sweatshirt with a picture of what the Ozarks actually look like, in case you were confused.
Yeah. So you already came ready to fight. You dressed up for the occasion, so I don't feel bad about my initial jab at all, I guess. But no, we're thankful to have you here, and we have Dustin Ray back as well. My name is Levi. You know us. We're here, and we're going to do on this episode. Our plan is to talk about General Assembly. So we're going to skip over some of the church updates and things like that, and we're just going to get right into it. If you might have noticed, and I'm certainly have been talking about it in our churches, that we're getting ready to go to General Assembly for the PCA, and that's coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah, it is right around the corner, and it's crazy. I don't know about you guys. I feel like General Assembly always just makes the summer go by a lot quicker, especially the month of June just flies by because of it. And what we wanted to do today is really just explain General Assembly as best we can with the time we have, because a lot of our people, you might not know much about it at all. And so there's been a ton of different shows and podcasts and discussions about General Assembly, and specifically about some of the issues that are going to be debated and voted on at the assembly. Our goal is not to do that, not to get into all of those things. We want to be much more of just a high-level overview of what even is General Assembly and why it's important, and what it is that the three of us, when we leave our churches that week, and we'll be gone for a full week, what it is that we're going to be doing while we're there, just to give you a better idea about that. So what I thought we'd do is just start off and talk about even what is the General Assembly, and talk about the three levels or the three courts of our church, the Presbyterian Church in America. So we can jump into that, but before I do that, do you guys have any other just initial thoughts or anything you wanted to share before we just get into it?
I mean, just prepare yourself for the best podcast on General Assembly that you've ever heard. So that's it.
That's good. So I hope you're sitting down. I hope you're ready for this.
Yeah. Or
you might just be listening to this and have it playing while you're if you have insomnia or you need help going to sleep tonight. You just play this episode as we talk about church government. That might help you out there. But anyway, all right. Well, let's just jump into it. What even is the General Assembly? Anybody want to just define what we're even talking about for us?
General Assembly is the gathering of the elders of our entire communion, our entire church. It is where all of our churches and our presbyteries are represented in the business of the church, because we are connected not only through the presbyteries in a local regional area, but we are part of the Presbyterian Church in America, which is kind of a misnomer. It should be probably Presbyterian Church in North America. We have Canadian presbyteries, so I guess they're part of America. And we do have church plants overseas that are overseen by some of our presbyteries. But it is where our entire denomination comes together to do business that affects all of our presbyteries, and then as a result, all of our churches. And I'm sure we'll talk about how that representation works, who actually goes and comes together for that. But we meet once a year. It's in June, or at least it has been for the existence of the PCA, where we come together and we do that business together at least once a year.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and read from our book of church order. Is that reversed or is that read? Whatever. Anyway, so chapter 14, section 1 says, "The General Assembly is the highest court of this church and represents in one body all the churches thereof. It bears the title of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in America and constitutes the bond of union, peace, and correspondence among all its congregations and courts." That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, maybe it'd be helpful. I meant to do this. Maybe we could start actually with, I'm going to share my screen here and see if this works. We're trying some new technology on the show. So Dustin just read a section from chapter 14 on General Assembly. I jumped back a chapter to chapter 13, which is about the presbytery. And maybe it'd be helpful, we could even go back to the chapter before talking about the session. But I think most of our people, obviously you're part of our church, so you kind of understand the responsibilities and roles of the session. And by session, of course, we're referring to the pastor and ruling elders of the church and the responsibilities that they have. Our Book of Church Order spells out the responsibilities of the local church government, which is the session, and then the next higher court, which is the presbytery, and then the next, or the highest court, which is the General Assembly. So maybe we can just work through this real quick. Before we even do that, though, Aaron, we've mentioned the word court. I mentioned it just now. Why do we refer to these levels as courts? Why do we use that language?
Well, because number one, we are not a legislative body. We have legislation, so to speak, for the institution of the church, which is God's word. And we are not allowed to write laws that bind the consciences of men. We are only allowed to, as the preliminary principles of our Book of Church Order lay it out, the church is ministerial and declarative. We are only there to minister in Christ's name and to declare what he has given us to declare. So we are not a legislative body who's coming up with new laws that we go out and then impose on all of our presbyteries and our sessions. And even in our local sessions, we're not allowed to make up our own rules and hold our people to that. But we do act in ways that are both judicial in the aspect of discipline, and that happens at every level. So we have ways of doing that in the local church. We have ways of doing that in the presbytery. We even have ways of doing that at the General Assembly level. But what we're doing is we're seeking to apply God's word and our constitutional documents, which are the Westminster Standards, which is our confession and catechisms, which we hold to because they are a faithful summary of God's word, not because they're new laws or because we think they're great ideas, but because we think they faithfully summarize what God's word teaches. And then the other aspect of our Constitution is our Book of Church Order. This is the way that we have all agreed that we are going to do the business of the church together. And in order to keep everything decent and in order, as Presbyterians love to be decent and in order, our courts are the ways that we ensure that happens, hold one another accountable, and set the framework for all of the different levels of our churches to go out and to do that.
Yeah, that was excellent. So we don't want to give off the impression of being some kind of cold or like a judgmental kind of image when maybe we think of a court, but it is the way in which at each level we exercise review and control, and we guard the good deposit of the faith. That's so important, and we do the work of the church. And each of these different levels then has different responsibilities attached to it. which is why I brought this up here. And maybe we can just work through, we don't have to work through each of these bullet points, but we could work through a few of them, and then we could jump down to General Assembly. So we talk about the local church governed by the local elders, and then the presbytery, which is all the churches and the teaching elders within a geographical area. And that presbytery, we have 87 of them within the PCA. Each presbytery has certain responsibilities or certain powers, like it says here. So one of them, it has the power to receive under care its candidates for ministry, to examine and license candidates for holy ministry, to receive, dismiss, ordain, install, and remove and judge ministers. So, in other words, it's responsible for the ministers who are, the presbytery is the ordaining body of ministers who will then be ministers of word and sacrament within the church, and everything involved in that. Some of the other ones here, the presbytery reviews the records of the local churches to make sure everything's being done decently and in order there. I'm just kind of skimming through. You guys jump out if you see anything that would be helpful to discuss. They set apart evangelists to do the work. The presbytery is the one who establishes mission churches. I know Dustin and I, we've talked about that, which is our language for church plant. The presbytery was the one that established the church plant in Springfield, because that's within its power, because Springfield is within the geographical area of our presbytery. And so it established the church plant, and then it also called you and ordained you and sent you to go and be the pastor of that church plant, which I think is just a really cool system.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that stands out to me, and I think as we're thinking about how, so really tired this morning. Yesterday was part one of a move. So we're moving homes from within Springfield. Anyway, I'm thinking about those of us who, or those among our millions and millions of listeners,
Yep.
Who might just think, man, what are you guys talking about? Where is this in the Bible? Right? Why does this matter? Here's, as I'm thinking through this, and I'm not trying to go afield here, but I'm thinking, one, this is beautiful to me, but it also, as we're thinking about our philosophy of ministry, as we're thinking about what the church is supposed to do, this really helpfully narrows what we're supposed to be doing, and it excludes things that we ought not be doing. And Aaron, what you were saying a minute ago really seems very helpful, because the church is not to be writing new laws for itself and for society, right? That, I think, speaks to issues of Christian nationalism and the demand for the church to go on and keep legislating on into its local congregations. This is what you're supposed to do, blah, 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 making it very fundamentalist, that sort of thing. And it's like, no, God gave us his law, and we now we use it to govern our churches, but we're not adding to. But anyway, maybe that's just me, like, as I'm preparing for Sunday's sermon, I'm actually going to be quoting now from our preface, section 1, which is just a beautiful, massive sentence that totally gives great guidance to us as pastors, as we're leading our congregations who are often tossed about by various individuals on social media and YouTube, who would want us to get distracted away from the spiritual mission of the church. This is so helpful. This is so helpful to us, because we need to be focusing our attention on what Jesus said to do. Go therefore and baptize and teach, right? Make disciples. So anyway, I think this is super helpful.
Yeah, I think two thoughts as we're thinking broadly about what church courts are and what they do. Number one, Dustin said, where do we get this? And the answer is Acts 15. When there's a problem that infects the church, the apostles called the first General Assembly of the
Yeah.
church, and they
Yeah.
brought representatives from um, all of the local localities, the churches in different areas. They came to Jerusalem. All the elders in Jerusalem came, and they worked out the problem. And then they commissioned Paul and Barnabas to go back out and to take the decision of that assembly to the churches that they had planted along the way, and
Mm-hmm.
encourage the brothers and sisters in all of those churches with what the true doctrine was. And that was, a theological controversy about what did Gentiles have to do? They have to become Jews to become Christians? And the answer was no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't have time for that sermon today. But the broader thing that I think is so helpful for me every time I go to Presbytery or go to General Assembly to keep the overarching view. Why are we doing this? Well, the reason that all of this happens is so that we can do the ministry of the local church. Everything that we
Mm-hmm.
do, both at the Presbytery level and the General Assembly level, is not meant to be some broad thing that is wide ranging in its scope. What it's meant to do is to make the ministry in the local church of ministers and elders and deacons and the members of that church work better, because that is the means that God has given us to be faithful, to make disciples, to present every man perfect. This is the point of our church courts on every level, is to establish and to help the ministry of the local church, that local body and that local expression.
Yeah, and so we're looking at these things. Each of these powers that the session has, or the Presbytery or General Assembly, these are enumerated powers. These are things that are given to these specific bodies or courts, are given to do for the benefit, like Aaron, you're saying, of the church, the local church, the church together, the church at large. And we see some of that here. So let's jump down then. I'm going to scroll down here to General Assembly. The definition of General Assembly that Dustin read earlier. But it also has a bunch of stuff in here. Talks about we'll talk about those committees and agencies in a second. I want to scroll down, and so here, it has powers that the General Assembly is given, and these are things that the General Assembly is given to do. General Assembly also has different different committees and agencies. So when we think about it, we want to. I think it's helpful to think of the missions agency that we have. Mission to the World is the name of it. Our missions, foreign missions agency. It makes more sense that instead of local congregations themselves trying to raise up, train, finance, and send out foreign missionaries, or even for the presbyteries by themselves to try to do the work of training, equipping, financing, and sending out foreign missionaries, it makes a lot more sense that together we do that work as a church, where all of us would be doing that work together. We'd be supporting our missionaries, and we would be having just that central committee of the General Assembly that would be responsible for the work of missions. So it has language here for agencies and for the work of evangelization and things like that. The General Assembly also reviews records from presbyteries. It helps create new presbyteries. It helps resolve certain issues within the church when there are discipline cases or things like that come up. Or we can talk about all of that. Let me actually just scroll back up, and maybe we could talk a little bit about. So here are the committees and agencies that we have in the church. So I mentioned some of these already. Maybe we could just talk through some of these, and then we could jump over to the actual docket, which is helpful just to help people get a picture of what it is that we're going to be doing while we're there that week. So you guys just jump in whenever. So the church has several different committees and agencies. So we mentioned MTW already, Mission to the World. That's our foreign mission sending agency. We also have Mission to North America. That's our domestic missions, which is church planning. A committee that helps with that, helps assist churches in various areas.
Something else that M&A does that is so cool to me is it also helps with, they have a whole branch that does disaster relief, and comes in and almost serves maybe a denominational-wide diaconal ministry, specifically to our churches, but also to their communities, where if there are storms or wildfires like we had in Oklahoma recently, we have a ministry of our denomination nationwide that is ready to go and to do physical ministry. And M&A, Mission to North America, oversees that, and it's one of my favorite aspects of their ministry.
Yeah, and for our Joplin folks who were here in 2011 for the tornado, M&A was here helping with that cleanup and assistance, and they do great ministry, absolutely. Another one, so Reformed University Fellowship. A lot of our folks will be familiar with that. That's our campus ministry. That's also handled at the General Assembly level with input and involvement, of course, from the presbytery, as the presbyteries are, they're the ones who would be examining and ordaining the ministers who will then serve as RUF campus pastors. There's several others.
I love what one of our RUF ministers in our presbytery, the first conversation I had with him about RUF, I was like, tell me what RUF is. What are you doing? And he says he sees himself as a representative of our presbytery and a missionary on the campus of a college, which is a mission field. And I think that perspective of what our campus ministry is the perfect way to describe what we should be doing.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, there's some others on here. Covenant College, Covenant Theological Seminary. Those are educational institutions that are part of the PCA and have oversight. The General Assembly, through elected representatives to these committees, has oversight of that. PCA Foundation handles finances and giving and handles that for the denomination. Geneva is benefits for ministers in the denomination, retirement and health benefits. Bridgehaven Something cool about Geneva benefits is, so we're not only connected as a denomination, but we also are part of a group. It's called NAPARC, and I can't remember what that stands for, but we're in fellowship with other Presbyterian and Reformed denominations, and we're the biggest one of those. And Geneva Benefits has actually done such a good job in helping with benefits, specifically for pastors is mostly what they do. But there are other NAPARC denominations that utilize Geneva Benefits as their arm of handling benefits for the ministers of their denominations. And so this is an expression even beyond, as a ministry of our General Assembly, even beyond the PCA, to our other Presbyterian and Reformed brothers and sisters in those other denominations. We're able to minister to them with the gifts that God has given our church. And Geneva Benefits has been a good way of expressing that communion we have even with them and ministering to them in that way. Yeah, I didn't realize that that they had expanded that far beyond the PCA, but that's cool. That's really cool. And so all these committees and agencies that we have, I hope it's at least clear that the work that these groups are doing is larger than just any one presbytery or any one church, which is why it's handled at the General Assembly level. And so, and obviously that makes sense. Our college and seminary, they don't belong just to one presbytery. They serve the entire denomination, so they have oversight from the denomination gathered or assembled. That's the General Assembly has oversight of them. Same with all these groups listed here. So, any other thoughts on any of those?
Yeah, I think, some of these agencies and committees are more exciting than others, right? And that's okay. Just like how there's some parts of your house, as I'm moving now and making some repairs to an 88-year-old home, which I'm really excited about. Hopefully, we'll see it into its 100th year. Anyway, some of the parts of that house of a house are more exciting than others. Like plumbing is not super exciting, but you kind of want it. Otherwise, if you don't have it, like, what are you gonna do? You got to have it so that your normal operations can keep going on without distracting you from having to do other things. So, if we didn't have Geneva benefits, for example, and a pastor became had something that short-term disabled him, right? Well, and he's got to now he or his family have to try to figure out how to pay the things, and that distracts him from shepherding the church and whatever, right? No, these things exist to distract him and the church less, so that ministry can continue on, right? So they may not be the most some of these are not the most thrilling of agencies, but if we didn't have them, we would be much slower and more distracted and less able to fulfill the Great Commission, which is one of the things that I think it's scroll down or something, whatever. The purpose of the General Assembly is to fuel the Great Commission. Number one, the church is responsible for carrying out the Great Commission. The General Assembly exists for that. So that's it's not, some of this isn't really exciting, you know what I mean, for you super thrill seekers, but this is really important stuff.
If any of our committees are the plumbing of our house, it's probably the administrative committee. I say as an administrator and a member of our Presbytery's administrative committee. But if you think about the fact that we have, almost 2,000 churches, we have, 5,000 maybe pastors, we have maybe 500,000 members. That's a lot on a denominational level, and especially when we come together to try to coordinate all the business that our church is trying to do and each of these pieces that fit together. We need people that are skilled in doing that. And administration is one of those things. It's like a baseball umpire. You only notice it when he's doing a bad job. And if you never talk about the umpire, it means the game went well. But if he starts doing a bad job, you're going to notice it immediately. So administrative committee is crucial to making sure that and if you've ever been in an organization that had bad administration, you know this. It is so important that the people who have the skills to keep things running smoothly are in those positions to help that happen, so that everybody can be freed up to just go do what they're called to do. And that's what the administrative committee is meant to do on the General Assembly, is to kind of keep everything moving together in the right direction and free everybody else up, all our other committees and agencies, to focus on what they've been tasked with doing.
Yeah, well said. I think that's so important to remember. This is about the Great Commission ultimately, and this is the system that we've developed. Again, no system is ever perfect. There's not going to be a perfect church until Jesus comes back, but this is, as far as we have it, the best system we have to fulfill the work of the Great Commission, and that's what we'll be trying to help do. When we go in a couple weeks.
I think we ought to make T-shirts and say that the administrative committee is the plumbing of the PCA, and then on the back we could have Reforming the Ozarks. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And a QR code. Stamp a QR code on it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, a little in-house talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah, we'll bring some swag. Yeah, we can sell some T-shirts out of the back of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real reason why we're going.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Make money.
Well, what is it that we're going to do? Should we switch over to that now? Let me see. That's a big just overview, but now we could consider how does this all work in practice? Maybe that's the segue I'm looking for. How do we make this work in practice? So let me share another screen now of the General Assembly. So
lift your eyes.
So this is the General Assembly in Chattanooga. Let me see if I can make it a little less, maybe like that. There we go. It's more in frame. Yeah, we got a nice conference theme, though it's not a conference. It's a business meeting that will have some worship and, of course, fellowship and all kinds of other stuff going on. It's a very busy week. But we'll be in Chattanooga on June 23rd to the 27th for the General Assembly. You can check out this website yourself if you want to. You go to pcaga.org and just have a blast looking around. But there's all kinds of information on here. Let's go over to resources, and maybe we just work our way down this website. I don't know.
Let's do it.
So right off the bat, the first thing is overtures. Guys, what's
like
overtures?
Hors d'oeuvres? Like things that we're gonna eat before. Is that what we're doing? Sorry, first time GA attender. Is that what we're talking about?
First time GA attender reacts to the 50 overtures that we have. Aaron, what's going on? What are these overtures here?
Just to clarify, I do know what overtures are. A little segue, a little humor. You know, I don't offer a lot of experience here. I'll offer some humor. So anyway,
comment down below if you. Sorry, comment down below if you think Dustin actually knows what an overture. No, I'm joking. All right, go ahead, Aaron.
An overture is basically just a request for the General Assembly to do or say something. Typically, they come up from a presbytery. Everything has to originate at a presbytery. Somebody has to bring it to a presbytery and say, hey, we want to send a communication to the General Assembly and ask them to do or say something. It doesn't always, and if you watch the live stream this year and see GA, then you'll see that we have an overture that did not pass the presbytery, but was brought by the teaching elder who wrote it and is asking the General Assembly to act on it. We had one actually pass last year that was similar, that came from an individual. It's very rare that happens. But essentially, these are just all the different things that have come to the General Assembly asking us to do something or to say something. Largely, these end up being changes to our Book of Church Order, perfections, requests for perfections, because it's not perfect, and it never will be until Jesus comes back and we don't need any Book of Church Order anymore. But that's what a lot of them are, but you will also notice things like asking to change presbytery bounds. Sometimes we'll be asked to establish new presbyteries or to take a large presbytery and divide it. You'll have things like requests to study a particular topic that is troubling the church. And we've had study committees that have produced papers and reports on all kinds of different things. The most recent one, I think, it was a human sexuality report, I think was the most recent one that we received. Helping us think through pastorally a topic that is significant and that the church needs to address, particularly in our culture. So those are the types of things that typically come through overtures. And Levi, I'm sure, would love to tell you a little bit more about that, because he will be serving on the committee that has to handle all 50 of these.
Yeah. You just scroll and you keep scrolling and you keep scrolling and it keeps going, and there we are at the bottom. So like Aaron said, we have our Book of Church Order, and we think it's great, but it's not perfect. And when presbyteries think they have a way of making the BCO function a little better, they can send up an overture to do that. And there's all kinds of those, like this one, just wanting to amend a part of the BCO to help clarify parts of an investigation. There's others, amending the BCO, part of the BCO, for when candidates come under care of the presbytery. And there's all kinds of things. We have a lot of these where there's a desire for the PCA to set up a ad interim committee to study and provide some resources on Christian nationalism. And so what that means is that there's, I can't remember how many, 3, 4, 5 maybe, presbyteries have each decided, we think this is an important issue that we want the PCA to report on, or to discuss and to present a report about. And so we're overturing the General Assembly to do that. So there's 50 of these such overtures. We're not going to talk through all of them. I plan to, we'll link to several different podcasts and other resources if you're interested in going through each of these individually and what they mean and what they would accomplish if they are to be passed. But I'll just mention, like Aaron said, please be praying for me. I'm on the Overtures Committee this year, and what that committee does is, instead of sending all 50 of these overtures as they are to the floor of General Assembly with all 2,000 commissioners, instead of the 2,000 of us going back and forth trying to debate each of these overtures, trying to amend them, trying to change them, and then trying to pass them, what we do instead is we have a committee do that work, the Overtures Committee. And that's made up of each presbytery can send 2 representatives to serve on that committee. So we'll have around 150, 160 people there. And that committee will then do the work of debating these overtures, of amending them when needed, trying to perfect the language of them. And then what the Overtures Committee will do is send a report to the General Assembly with their recommendations. And they'll say, we recommend that you vote up this overture, or we recommend that you vote down this overture. And then what the General Assembly does is they vote on what the Overtures Committee recommends, yes or no. And there's a couple other options in there for things like that. And that's the general gist of it. Of course, there's more detail and nuance, and issues can still come up and all that. But anyway, that's the general idea behind all these overtures, is we're trying to make our BCO better, trying to perfect our Constitution. We're trying to accomplish other things or make statements that are necessary for our church to do. And this is the process that we do that. So any other thoughts on that?
It's just interesting that, we've got our own overture coming up. Maybe we could talk about that for a second.
Which one?
The Hills and Plains changing the boundaries of our presbytery.
Oh, well, we could talk about that, but that's actually not going to happen this year. So
that's an easy
kind
one.
of
Yep.
You're welcome, team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway,
It is moot.
it's a moot point. Yeah, not much to say about that. You can ask us individually if you're curious.
I'll say one other thing on overtures, which is that's what most people get most excited and want to discuss, and it's where we will spend the most time on the floor, especially with 50 of these. But it's not the only important business, and sometimes it's not even the most important business, depending on what we're handling. So while there's a lot of fun discussion back and forth, and there are a lot of podcasts, of the making of podcasts, there is no end, going through all of these and talking about opinions and what you think you should do or what we shouldn't do. That's not the totality of our business, and oftentimes it may not even be the most important thing that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot more to it. So let's scroll down. Travel information, some fun apps, super fun. Here we go. Maybe we can just look at the docket. How about that? With some of our time, we can let's see if did that work. Awesome. Technology is so cool. So yeah, here we go. This is what we're going to be doing. Super exciting. But this is the docket as it's been sent. Of course, you can see it's a second draft. We don't officially adopt this docket until we actually when we convene and vote to adopt it. And before then, items can be moved around. But maybe we could just take it a day at a time, or just, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Jump in what you guys want to talk about. But
what is a committee of commissioners?
All right, boom. Okay, I'll take a stab at this one. This confused me when I first joined the PCA, because you have all these committees, and then you also have this committee of commissioners, which are also committees, and they're just of the making of committees. Is no end. So we mentioned all the different committees and agencies of the PCA. We talked about MTW, MNA, RUF, CDM, the administrative committee, and then we talked about Covenant College, Covenant Theological Seminary, all those that we talked about. So each of those committees and agencies, they act on behalf of the assembly, and because of that, they are responsible to the assembly. So how does the assembly then exercise its responsibility of having oversight of those different committees and agencies? Well, again, similar to how the overtures are not handled by all 2,000 of us, they're handled by a separate overtures committee and then recommended to the assembly. In the same way, these committees and agencies, we don't handle the work of oversight as a 2,000 body of commissioners. What we do is we set up committees of commissioners, which are committees that then do the work of reviewing the minutes and reports from each of these agencies, and then they take any actions at that committee level, and then they give a report back to the full assembly of all 2,000 people. And I use the number 2,000 because that's just been the average amount of commissioners we've had at General Assembly the past few years. So we'll have around 2,000 commissioners. Maybe we need to define what a commissioner is. A commissioner is just a teaching or ruling elder that's been sent either by the presbytery or by the session to attend General Assembly. And so the committee of commissioners then are specifically appointed by presbytery to serve on one of those committees that reviews the work done by those committees and agencies, RUF, MTW, MNA, and so on. How'd I do?
About
Thumbs up.
batting 1,000.
Dustin, are you on a committee of commissioners?
I am. Covenant College.
Yep. And I'm on Mission to the World. Levi's
Awesome.
serving on overtures. So each of us will have responsibilities even before the assembly opens to go and to do business on those first couple of days. One other thing I'll say is, and we'll see this further down in the docket, each of those permanent committees and agencies will have the opportunity to present to the entire body, and they'll have recommendations that they want to do. The committees of commissioners in their oversight will hear those, and the committee commissioners may have an alternative that they prefer, and they'll have the opportunity to present their alternative to the full assembly, and then the full assembly will decide between those which of those better serves the purpose of that agency or committee and the better purpose of the church as a whole. And so that is one of the ways that this oversight and review and control comes out is sometimes, not often, but sometimes the permanent committee and the committee commissioners may have different perspectives on what needs to be done, and then both of those will be presented to the assembly, and the assembly ultimately decides what should be done in that particular situation.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think real quick, I think, Levi, what you were saying just a moment ago about how you were defining how we defined the difference or the purpose of the overtures committee is to, they're working on all the overtures before the assembly does. That's what the committee of commissioners is doing. They're working on the specific committee. They're working on the business for that committee before the whole assembly does. That was that, because we're talking about what is the committee of commissioners, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know. So it's like, thank you, Levi. You helped one person today at least. So
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so glad to hear it. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, so you see, Monday right away, 10 a.m. is Overtures Committee briefing, and then Overtures Committee begins immediately after that. So I'll be doing that right away on Monday. And then some of the Committee of Commissioners meet on Monday for these groups, but you guys said you're Covenant College and MTW?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? So you guys so you won't meet till Tuesday. So Dustin and Aaron just get to party and hang out on Monday. They don't actually do anything until Tuesday. So they get to be slackers a little bit. So, looking down on the docket though, on Tuesday, there's stuff in the morning, different meetings, different committees of commissioners. So yeah, what this looks like is for all these different committees, and for Dustin and Covenant College, for Aaron and MTW, they're going to meet in different meeting rooms at the convention center. They're going to get a report from this committee. It's going to have recommendations, and then their committee of commissioners will work through those recommendations, and then they'll either agree with them or they might amend them in some way, or make whatever recommendation they have then to the General Assembly. So a lot of times, and maybe if you guys have other examples of what those kind of recommendations look like, but usually it's we want teaching elder Lloyd Kim, I believe, who's the current chairman of MTW. We want him to be reelected for another term, for another year, and the committee of commissioners will say yes, we agree, and they'd make that recommendation to the General Assembly, and then the General Assembly, gathered again together, all 2,000, will then vote on that recommendation, and if they all agree, they say, yep, we agree, then it's done. So that's just the way of the different checks and balances, the way that system works out. But then it's not until there's some seminars as well on that Tuesday, where just all kinds of different seminars people can talk about. There's different workshops. I went last year to one about officer training. A guy presented what he did for officer training. That was really helpful. I went to that seminar and I used some of his materials when we did officer training. There's some on giving workshops. There's one on bookkeeping I went to one time. All kinds of different just seminars on all kinds of different stuff.
You're so boring. Just kidding. I love it. I that's something I'm interested in.
I embrace it.
Good.
I don't
Good.
I don't enjoy having fun. That's why I'm talking about this on a podcast.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. But
No,
it's not
that's
until 6 p.m. or so that the actual assembly begins. So we have all this work that we're doing a couple days beforehand, and then at Tuesday evening is when we have the opening session of the General Assembly, which is just a really cool. I just think there is some pomp to it, and I just think that's really cool because it is a really exciting moment where we have our outgoing moderator, Ruling Elder Steve Dowling. He'll call us to order, and we'll have a worship service, and then so it's a church, which we are the Presbyterian Church in America, and we gather as a church and we worship, and I think that's just awesome. It's wonderful to all be worshiping, all 2,000 plus of us together, with all of all the wives and families that are able to attend as well. Really cool. But then we'll the assembly will reconvene, and we'll go through these initial.
Let me jump in
here.
though. Levi.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back. I think when you guys had me on and we talked about presbytery, I made the same point. But one of the most meaningful aspects of that opening worship service is we always take the Lord's Supper together.
Yeah.
Which
That's
we
so
also
cool.
do at our Presbytery meetings. When we open with worship, we always take the Lord's Supper together. And I think that is so meaningful to frame the next, that night, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. We're going to be arguing with each other because Presbyterians love to argue. And we're going to be arguing over minutia, and there's going to be very strongly held opinions, and there might even be emotions that are involved. But when we frame all of that with the communion with Jesus and with our brothers and sisters in that room and the brothers with whom we will be disagreeing, it helps establish what we're doing. We're worshiping as a church because we are a church, and we are in communion with one another. Everything we're doing is in-house debate. It's intramural. We're not just because we disagree on something that may be really important later on in the business doesn't mean we're calling each other not a Christian or a heretic. We're saying, no, we all, and especially in a room full of elders, not only are we brothers in the Lord, we're brothers that have been set apart and ordained by the church to come and do this business. We belong to one another. And starting every single year with the establishment of worship and participating in that sacrament together, I think should set the tone and keep that overarching frame of what we're doing is only for the good of the church and because we belong to one another.
I remember when you said that in our Presbytery episode, and I have not forgotten that. I have thought about that frequently since you mentioned that. That is so helpful, and that's helpful as we minister locally. There are conflicts that we have in our local congregations, and sharing the table together frames that, just like you said. That's so good. That's so helpful.
Yeah. So we'll have that initial worship service. We have 3 throughout the week, worship services. I don't know if there's anything we need to. So this is they have the reports put in here. So that first evening.
The major thing we do the first night is we elect a moderator. And that's going to be the man that will be trying to keep us on track for the rest of the week.
Yes.
So, he'll pray for whoever's going to be the moderator.
Yep. He has the important task of keeping us, the assembly. I can't remember, how you described it once, Aaron, but toddlers with fire and rocket launchers and just it's a hard task. So they have an important job to moderate the assembly. So we'll do all that. We'll recess.
The rest of what we do that night is just reports. We'll vote on RAO amendments. We probably don't have time to dig into what those are.
Yeah.
But majority of after that worship service, and we've elected moderators, we hear reports. And so the one from the stated clerk will tell us kind of the health of our denomination since last year, and then we'll hear some other reports from specific committees on the work they've done over the past year. Not a lot of action going on that first night.
Yeah. Yep. Just because we'll only meet for about 2 hours or so, then we'll be done. And then we start right back again, 8:30 the next morning, and go through a lot of reports there. I'm just going to scroll through.
Oh, man, you can't skip over review of Presbytery records.
What?
Just really briefly,
I
was our Presbytery's representative on review of Presbytery records. What this is in the same way that presbyteries at least once a year review the minutes of all the sessions of the churches in that presbytery. On the General Assembly level, we have a committee that reviews the minutes of all the presbyteries, and then they'll present a report. And basically what they're looking for is making sure that everything the presbyteries are doing is in accords with our Constitution, both with the Westminster Standards and with our Book of Church Order that says if you're going to do things, you have to do them this way. So there will be a report. This will be, maybe next to overtures. This might be the one that people scrutinize the most to see what's going on around the denomination. You'll get a view into that in this report on Wednesday morning.
Yep. So again, just super riveting, exciting stuff there. Other committees at noon. I'll have Dustin bring my lunch. We'll reconvene. We'll do more stuff. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. But let's see. Yeah, Wednesday there's another Wednesday, worship service in the evening. Wednesday night is when there's a lot of different events and different groups and gatherings. So I think we might all be going to the Gospel Reformation Network dinner banquet. That's on Wednesday night. So that's outside of the General Assembly itself. But there's lots of other things like that meet during that time. And then
I think we should probably have like a little section on all the after parties. You know what I mean? Like the after party after the after parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's plenty of fun. Yeah, shindigs that happen.
Who's
we'll
awake
enjoy.
for any of that? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. The days get pretty long. Get pretty long. I'm trying to see here when they actually. So this is when we, and then that Thursday, that's when we having our docket. We're gonna end on Thursday night at 10:15. We'll do the benediction. We'll be done. We've always ended since I've been here on that Thursday night, but we always have that Friday open for business if any business carries over onto that Friday. And I've heard horror stories of such assemblies where they have had to go into Friday and stay a long time. That's before my time. So we'll see. We'll see how long it takes for us to get all of our business done. And if it does spill out onto Friday.
I do remember St. Louis. We so very much did not want to come back Friday morning that we went to like 1 a.m. that Thursday night into Friday morning just to get done. And we did get done, and nobody had to come back.
Yeah, and so that's another option is the Thursday night, we just keep extending our time until we get all the work done. That could happen too. So,
dude, I'll just lay down on the floor and go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like I can't hang that late.
Yeah,
I'm an old man.
It's past our bedtime.
Yeah.
So two points about Thursday. One is that's when we hear the report of the nominating committee, and what they are doing is bringing forth nominations to fill those permanent agencies and committees that oversight, and the assembly will vote on who we want to be serving in those roles. You know, they're limited. They're usually anywhere between like 8 and 12 men on there. So that'll happen there, and then overtures is on Thursday. So that's when you want to get your popcorn ready, and that's when a lot of the extended debate and the hot topics will be in front of you. If you are a GA nerd watching the live stream, Thursday is your day.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of the YouTubes on the assembly, like the live stream post haste, whatever. Anyway, they're super great. They're really great to watch. So yeah, but maybe the three of us are more tend towards nerd and stupid or intelligent actually, and I'm really tired. I'm gonna stop talking. Sorry.
Well, if you are nerdy like us and want to, you can watch the live stream. It'll be out there, and we'll share it out to our folks. And it's hey, if you're interested in this kind of thing, God bless you, and you might just be called to be a Presbyterian if you are.
That's right.
So I hope that I think I know we need to wrap up here for our schedules just for today. But hopefully that just gives you a bit of an overview of what it is that we're going to be doing on that in that week coming up a couple weeks from now. And we'll link down in the notes and the comments some some of the other just podcasts and resources and videos that walk through in much more detail all of these different issues and the overtures and things like that. If you're interested in wanting to learn more, again, this was just a very high level, not getting into the weeds or into any of the issues at all. If you're in the know on some of those things, you might be wondering, you guys didn't talk about anything. And no, we didn't talk about anything. We just did a very large overview, a 30,000 foot view of it. But there's all kinds of stuff that you can go look at and watch and read on your own. Come grab us at church on Sunday and ask us questions about it. We always love talking about these things. And anyway, that's the plan. So any final thoughts from either of you guys?
I'm excited. Can't wait.
It is a long week. It is a tedious week, and it is an important week for us as elders to fulfill our calls. And I'm very appreciative of the ruling elders who make the time to do this. It's
Absolutely.
a lot harder for them usually than it is for pastors who can just say, this is part of my job. This is why I'm here. They take vacation time. It's not cheap to go to General Assembly. Thankfully, our church has budgeted to send our full contingent every year. But some guys are paying out of their own pocket, burning their vacation time to go as ruling elders and do this. And I would pray that the Lord would reward them for their dedication to the church, because this is really important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, thank you, ruling elders, for, like Aaron said, taking that time off work, using that week of vacation instead of using it for other things. You're using it to serve the church. That's a huge blessing, and we need you. So we're thankful for that. And yeah, please be praying for us as we head out to General Assembly. Be praying for our denomination. We need your prayers. There's all kinds of things that we'll be discussing and debating that we need God's grace to work through. And so we need your prayers to sustain us in that. Well, that should do it for us today. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end. Thank you for hanging out with us, talking about something that, in the grand scheme of things, is not the most exciting topic in the world, but it is very important, and we do like it and think it is a vital part of our church. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to take a break from recording these while we get ready for GA, so we'll pick back up at some point later this summer, hopefully. So we'll see you again when we see you, but until then, as always, go to church.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Reforming the Ozarks. We would love to hear from you. You can reach us at reformingtheozarks@gmail.com. To learn more about our churches, visit ctkjoplin.com and gospelsgf.org. If you would like to partner with us in planting confessional and reformed churches right here in the Ozarks, go to gospelsgf.org and click on Make a Donation.